He helped his family escape. He crossed the river into South Korea. Whenever I get a chance to, I've told my students this. As a teacher at Acacia Middle School teaching 6th grade, I get the opportunity to teach world history, ancient civilizations. I get to tell them that the United States did not invent slavery. And they are shocked by this news. I have had students argue with me saying, no way, Mr. Chun, you're kidding, right? That's not true. The United States had slaves. They invented slavery. And then we go back to the times of ancient Babylon. And what happens? They conquer civilization and they make them slaves. It's been around since the beginning of time. So I know what communism looks like. I know what tyranny looks like. And I've watched students suffering when we came back in full time. Remember, in 2021, we came back with a hybrid program. In the hybrid program, some students were allowed to come back to school, offered to come back to school. They had to be masked up. We had plexiglass on all the desks. It was absolutely ridiculous. I was told, I had students come in with hoods on, masks on. For a month, I misidentified a student. I thought one student was one kid, but it turned out to be a different kid because all I saw were the eyes. And that's it. And they were brown eyes. Both kids had brown eyes. So then come back 2022, and I'm here hoping and thinking, you know what? Newsom has released a mandate, the mask mandate in June. Everything's going to be great. Let's go ahead and move forward. No. I get told immediately, we know that you have a mask exemption, a medical exemption for a mask, so you still have to wear your shield along with the drape. It's a piece of cloth taped to the bottom of my face shield. Okay? And this cloth, when I look down on my clipboard, rests on my shoulder, on my chest, so I end up breathing in my exhale. So I have to do this to breathe. Absolutely ridiculous. And then we're told COVID protocol says that don't stay near a student within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. So if I'm there 14 minutes and 59 seconds, I'm fine. And I don't need to report myself when that kid comes down with COVID. Just like with Janie, on December 16th, I was also called into the district office. For a while, I was refusing to share my vaccination status, and I refused to test weekly. I got several emails. I went back and forth with Derek Gindra, along with the board, saying this isn't right, this is unconstitutional, this is wrong. I believe that as a Christian, this is a satanic religious activity, and I'll take no part in it whatsoever. So on December 16th, when I came in, I was first represented with a letter of reprimand, just like Janie, saying that I was insubordinate, and this was a formal letter that was going to go on my record. I said, okay. Then they asked me, are you willing to comply? And I said, no, I'm not willing to comply. They asked me 3 times, and they said, all you have to do is comply, and all of this goes away. Not being a part of the union, I had Chris with me as a witness. He witnessed Dr. Gindra saying, all you have to do is comply, and this will all go away. And I said no. So then they gave me a notice saying, well, as of January 3rd, you are on unpaid administrative leave. Here's the notice. You have 2 weeks, you have the break to think about it and change your mind. And if you change your mind, just give us a call. You'll be reinstated immediately, and all this goes away. I was also reminded when I get put on unpaid administrative leave, it's going to affect my retirement because I won't get the STRS credits. It's going to affect my pay, obviously. And they won't do me the courtesy of firing me so I can get another job. I am still stuck with Hemet Unified because they're holding on to my credential. The only bright side to this is they did say that they would release my credential if I decide to resign. I'm not going to resign. I don't back down from a fight. I have told my students over and over again that the only thing that evil needs to succeed is for good people to do nothing. I've had several teachers, several coworkers, several friends ask me, what's the big deal? Why don't you just test? Why don't you just test? Just comply. I've said this since 2020. If you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want your whole dang house. Okay, and that's where we're heading to. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Tejan. Thank you very much. So how many, well, I'm not going to do that to you, but I just want to say that if you're an educator in the room, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We know that it's difficult for you to take a stand. We know that there's tons of peer pressure. And we want you to know that we are behind you and we support you. And you have more people in your field, in your schools, in this district, both in Hemet and San Jacinto, that are behind you, okay? You are not alone. And so we're behind you. And with that said, I want to bring up two really special teachers, Ginger and Jen. They're going to join me up here on the stage. They are part of our coalition. They have started their own movement, a teachers movement. They are calling themselves the Freedom Fighters, and they're going to talk just briefly about their movement, and then we're going to see a quick video clip here, okay? So would you welcome Ginger and Jen onto the stage?
Hello, everybody. Okay, there's a lot of teachers out here, and yeah, and I appreciate you all coming out. We are the Freedom Fighters of Hemet Unified School District. We teachers have come together. There's a lot of us, by the way. We teachers have come together because of our passionate belief in freedom of choice. We don't all come from the same backgrounds, religions, or even political affiliations. We have come together as a support group and quickly turned into a force to be reckoned with. We have worked tirelessly, brainstorming ideas of how we can make positive changes, networking, connecting, sharing, researching, speaking up, taking risks, all for the sake of holding the line and fighting for our freedom. No one should be forced to wear masks, get experimental vaccines, or be subjected to weekly testing. Very early on, we became aware that our teachers' union has had one of the heaviest hands in strong-arming the implementations of these mandates for our state and schools. We learned that 75% or more of our monthly dues are sanctioned toward funding radical political agendas that we do not subscribe to. It became clear that the first and easiest thing we could do was opt out of the union. Well, many of us tried to do this last October, and we were told that we had to wait for a particular window to open up. Well, that window is basically coming up. And so if you're interested in opting out or want more information, Ginger and I have a table out front. It is now that we can make an impact and do our part in putting an end to this powerhouse which serves evil. And here's Ginger.
Thank you, Jen. I'm so honored to be a part of this group. Thanks to Tejan for introducing me to Rebecca Friedrichs. Thank you to Chris and Jen and all of you teachers out there that are with us. You don't have to be afraid. We're about to show you a trailer of a movie, a documentary that's coming out. This lady, her name is Rebecca Friedrichs. She wrote this book, Standing Up to Goliath. She was a teacher, a young teacher, when she figured out that, these union people aren't that nice, and they're not really supporting us. They don't really care about anything but, money. And this movie that's coming out on March 14th, this documentary, is going to show all of the lies and all of the things that are happening to your children in school thanks to the unions. And it's called Whose Children Are They? And you can buy these tickets at fathomevents.com. In this book, she gives you true accounts of what's been going on all these years under the iron fist of the unions. They are the ones that control everything. And they're the ones that we need to get out of this membership now that we can. She was one of the first people, the pioneers, that went to the Supreme Court to make it so that we did not have to be in a union, that it is voluntary. God bless this woman. And she is now, is time up? Sorry. So the time's up. We're going to show you this wonderful trailer. We hope you can see this movie. If you need more information, we're at the table out there afterwards.
Ginger, thank you.
Public education has gone off the rails.
Once you get into this idea that it's really the government's job to educate children, you end up in a very, very dangerous place, and I don't see anything good coming out of that.
When we look at this radical agenda, the way our children are being exploited and the way parents are getting shut out, it comes down to one fundamental question. Whose children are they?
Whose children are they?
Whose children are they?
¿De quién son esos niños?
Whose children are they?
Where did this idea come from that we're even asking whose children are they?
It's where all the money is. It's why the union is there. It's why it's so corrupt.
Now it's about power and money and politics, and somehow the kids are getting lost in all of that.
Our teachers are bullied. Parents are shut out.
America as we know it is being reimagined in a very dangerous way.
That just lights a fire into my butt, and that's why I wanted to put a stop to critical race theory, so that a lot of friendships can be saved and that we can just all get along.
You know, I hesitate to say that there was a silver lining to COVID, but parents suddenly had this window into what their children were learning day in and day out.
Critical race theory is dividing our children in ways that are unacceptable.
It pits one race against another.
You cannot use racism to eradicate racism.
Less than 1/3 of America's school children are proficient in anything.
They're teaching these kids X-rated sex acts.
I don't want my daughter exposed to that. The school system wants to indoctrinate us teachers first before we indoctrinate your kids.
Certain ways of thinking are approved, and certain ways of thinking are not.
They sentenced me to jail because I wanted a better education for my daughters.
They're not interested in tolerance.
Their whole goal is to intimidate, to silence the opposition.
There's so much damage done by the lockdown on the students.
Days turned into weeks and then months.
It doesn't actually surprise me that there's been more suicides. I know I've had those thoughts.
They told me, if you want to teach, you'll sign.
We want to make sure that teachers know that you do have another option.
Right now in schools, it is not safe to be a teacher.
This was the most preventable mass murder in American history.
Less than 30 seconds, it was done.
And my daughter was murdered at the school.
It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you're a mom and a dad first.
And if we lose this battle on the educational front, then we lose not only our country, but we lose our kids. And we lose the ability to bring our children up the way that we want.
They are assaulting parental rights. They are not respecting our cultures, our values. They're not respecting our voice.
The reality is we're not dissenters, we're the parents.
So the question has to be asked.
Make sure you guys check out that movie. We want to support Rebecca and her work and all those people that have contributed to that great documentary. We have a few special guests here today that I want to recognize. We're not bringing them up on stage, but they've joined us today. Crystal Ruiz, the mayor of San Jacinto, she is here. Crystal, do you mind standing and just waving? Also, Brian Hawkins. Brian is a council member in San Jacinto, and Brian is running for Congress, United States Congress, so we need to make sure we support Brian. Also, Carly Myers, Mayor Pro Tem for Hemet. Carly is here as well. And I just got a little note that Jeff Hewitt, our county superintendent, is here. So, Jeff, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to invite a student. We've asked a student to come and speak today, Liam Munsinger. Liam just was suspended from Hemet High School for refusing to wear a mask in school. And so, Liam, would you come up and join us up here on the stage? Where are you, Liam? Oh, there you are. There you are. Okay, I didn't see you on the front row there. Oh, he wasn't. Oh, Liam, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Liam was not suspended. But Liam is part of a movement of students that is currently exercising their constitutional freedoms. And so Liam is going to share with us a little bit here. Welcome, Liam. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Liam Munsinger. I am a junior at Hemet High School. Sorry. I'm a junior at Hemet High School. And one of 4 sons to parents. They were both born in Hemet. All of us were raised in Hemet. All 4 of us went to Hemet High School, and we were all scholar athletes. 2 of my brothers are now in the United States military, serving our country. Education, discipline, confidence, and respect have always been things of high priority in our home. I love school, and I want to be in school. I think it is important to respect the opinions of others that might be different from my own. I also think that it's important to follow the rules that are put into place for valid reasons, rules that make sense. I never wanted to wear a mask to school, but I knew that I could not attend school if I did not wear a mask. The reason behind why we've been forced to wear masks at school has never made sense, but the requirement has been made clear to us for 2 years. We need to wear masks in class, but not if we are outside eating lunch. We need to wear masks in class, but not if we are in the gym actively participating in physical activities. When I have questioned all of this, the answer always leads to the same conclusion. Our California governor has imposed these mandates, and we must follow it. Well, once Gavin Newsom attended an NFL event maskless, and set the example that masks apparently were not required, I chose to follow his lead. On January 31st, I attended school knowing that I would not wear a mask, and my first period teacher told me I needed to wear a mask. I told her politely that I would not be wearing a mask, and then she pulled me out of class, told me that if I wasn't wearing a mask, she was going to have to send me to the office. I told her I wasn't going to wear a mask, so I walked up to the office. I was told more times than I can count I need to put on a mask, as there were students walking back and forth past me that weren't wearing masks. I made it apparent that there were students not wearing masks, and they just threw up their hands like, what do you want me to do about it? They threatened to suspend me because I wouldn't wear a mask. At that point, I had my mom take me home. I have not been back to school since. I really do want to be at school because that's where you learn. That's where all my friends are and stuff. You need to go to school, but wearing a mask is the dumbest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It makes absolutely 0 sense. And it also makes no sense that when I decide not to wear a mask, I get sent to the office, and then there's other kids not wearing masks. Nothing happens to them. It all depends on what the teacher wants to do. Doesn't make sense. The amount of class time I've lost this year, specifically due to conversations about masks in class, is ridiculous. I find myself being irritated that I cannot breathe fresh air freely while in class, which becomes really distracting. People I have known since elementary school no longer speak to me. They know I am not in favor of masks in schools, and that apparently divides us. I just don't understand why we're being pitted against each other over something that is so silly. We're being burdened with constant messages that we, as kids, are responsible for the safety of others. I've never considered myself a danger to others. If I'm sick, I know when I'm sick and I stay home. If I know other people are sick, I stay away from them. That's the right thing to do. And all of a sudden, all the weight of the world has been put on students' shoulders that we are personally responsible for every person around us. For as long as I can remember, my mom and dad have taught myself and my 3 brothers that we should always stand up for what is right, even if we are standing alone. I'm sorry. This peaceful noncompliance is important to me. I'm standing up for myself and what I know is right, but I'm also standing for others who may not be able to. Kids need to be in school, in person, if that's how they learn best, without conditions. If students want to continue wearing masks, I support that, but I want to be supported in my choice too. I want to be able to see my teacher speaking to me. I want to not have to struggle to understand muffled voices. I want to get back to a school environment where my worries about test scores and sports and what I might do over the weekend. Instead, I am at home working from a computer in order to not be stifled by a mask. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're proud of you, Liam. Nice job. So I have a special gentleman, Joel Staggers. He is a representative from the Blackstone Academy, and he has a quick little plug for a new school that's opening up in our area. So,
I'm the headmaster of Blackstone Classical Christian Academy. We're opening up here in Hemet. We'll start classes in August of 2022. Liam, you can come see me later. We'll talk. Now, we are very thrilled to have the freedom to pray with kids. We're thrilled to have the freedom to open up our Bibles and share truth with kids. What an opportunity to disciple that next generation in a Christian school setting where we have the freedom to point them to Christ. As a classical Christian school, we teach logic, we teach kids how to think logically, and we teach kids how to communicate effectively and persuasively. It's amazing to have the freedom and to have that type of opportunity in Hemet. We hope you'll pray for us, and we have a booth out there, a table out there, so stop by and get more information. We're excited to be here and excited to have the opportunity to offer families in our area another option for education. And as we've looked at tonight, we need it. And so I appreciate you praying for us and lifting us up as we start a new classical Christian high school here in Hemet. Come by and see me later if you can.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Joe Males, Councilman Joe Males from Hemet up here. Would you welcome Joe? While Joe is making his way onto the stage here, I just want to mention that we do have tables outside. We want to encourage you to stop by. There's one very important table. It's the School Choice Initiative table. You need to stop by that table. You need to sign that petition. We must pass this measure in California. We must get this petition onto the ballot in November, and in order to do that, we have to collect 1.5 million signatures. I don't have time to go into all the details of how it works, but basically what it does is it designates the money that the state of California pays for every child. It assigns that money to the specific child, and it follows that child everywhere they go, whether it's in a public school or a private school. So make sure you sign that, okay? Joe, thank you. All right.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, thank you for joining us here today for a very important town hall meeting hosted by the Freedom Coalition. My name is Joe Males. I'm here representing the American Legion Post 53 and also American Legion District 21 in California. I'm also a councilman that represents District 4 in the beautiful city of Hemet. I would like to introduce our color guard team who will be presenting colors and who will also join us in leading our town hall with a Pledge of Allegiance. So if you can stand as they come down with the American flag and the California flag, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And when we do say the Pledge of Allegiance, if you can uncover, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. This is Post 742 Color Guard Team with District Commander David Renbilla, District 21 Second Vice Commander Adalberto Navarro, and Post 742 Commander Kevin Button. If you can place your hand over your heart, I'd appreciate it. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah. Thank you.
You're up.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Now wait for the flag. Wait for the flag to leave, okay? Before you pray, all right? Yeah, you can head up though.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Malcolm Lilienthal, and I am the City of Hemet's newest mayor.
I'm with the Freedom Coalition of Hemet Center.
It is a pleasure to be here tonight and serving with all of you guys in the community. I am, as well as a father, a conservative, an American, and I am so excited to be here tonight and see all of this support for all these initiatives like school choice and all of these different things that we want to see happen in America. Please bow your heads with me as we open up in prayer. Father, we thank you for being in our midst tonight. We thank you for keeping your angels charge over all of us to keep us in all of our ways. We thank you for keeping your angels charge over our law enforcement, our legislators. We thank you, Lord, for continuing to put people in our legislators' way that will help them guide and make really good decisions for our country, for our state, for our cities. And we thank you, Lord, for being in our midst. Father, right now, I want to bind any type of work that Satan is trying to put against the United States right now, and I take authority in the name of Jesus that evil will not prevail, as you have given us authority in your name. And Lord, be with us tonight as our eyes are enlightened and as we fellowship together. In the name of Jesus, I pray, amen.
All right, so it's time for us to bring up our special featured guests today. First, I want to introduce someone to you, someone very special, Brad Dacus. Brad Dacus served as the legislative assistant to U.S. Senator Phil Gramm. He went on to receive his Juris Doctorate from the University of Texas School of Law. Brad coordinated religious freedom and parental rights cases throughout the western states for 5 years prior to founding the Pacific Justice Institute in 1997. PJI has a network with hundreds of volunteers, affiliate attorneys, and it handles more cases on the West Coast than any other legal nonprofit organization of its kind. Brad Dacus can be watched daily, Monday through Friday, on Brad Dacus Live on hischannel.com, and he can be heard weekly on the Dacus Report on more than 711 radio stations across the country, and also as a guest speaker on numerous radio and television programs across the nation. He's appeared on America Live, CBS Evening News, CNN, Dateline NBC, Good Morning America, MSNBC, NBC News, News Talk TV, and The Today Show, and numerous times on Fox News. Mr. Dacus's varied public speaking opportunities include public debate and testifying before the United States House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. He's also testified numerous times before the California State Legislature on legislation affecting religious freedom and parents' rights. Mr. Dacus continues to speak regularly at churches, conferences, graduations, and conventions throughout the United States, and was presented an honorary doctorate of religious freedom and family rights degree from California Baptist University in recognition of his commitment to faith and justice and his pro bono legal work protecting parental rights and religious freedom through the Pacific Justice Institute. Would you join me in welcoming Brad Dacus, president of Pacific Justice Institute? Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much, Brad, for coming.
Thank you. I apologize for not shortening the bio. That was, sorry.
No, I think everyone needed to hear that. You know, when I read it, I thought, man, this guy has done a lot.
We got a great team at PJI.
Yeah.
It's a great team.
Yeah.
And God's been so gracious in all that he's done. So.
Well, I just to jump right into this, I'd like for you to maybe just explain to everybody here how some of the things have changed at PGI over the last 2 years, since the pandemic, since the institution of these mandates. What does life look like now for you and for your team?
Well, it's interesting. So right before the pandemic, I'd met with our chief counsel, and he was telling me how the attorneys are working into the weekends, long hours. We had over 50 cases in active litigation. We'd open new offices, and he was just telling me, you know, we're overkill, our attorneys. Then the pandemic hit, and we needed waters to be parted, and it was incredible. We expanded our offices. We now have offices in 16 states, from Miami to Boston to near Seattle to Southern Orange County, and many places in between. And so we're very busy. Our cases are increasing dramatically. And one thing that makes us unique as a legal ministry is we want to make sure that everyone gets help, that no one's left on the side of the road. We don't just cherry pick a few high-profile cases. We don't do this on the side. This is full-time. This is what we do. And we have a great team of attorneys really making a difference. And by God's grace, we're seeing real success. I'll say right off the get-go, when the first pandemic hit and everything was shut down, we made a point to first do a training via Skype to train pastors on how they can have church services over the internet. That was the first thing we did. Then we started these Zoom calls. It was every week. Now it's every other week. We've got one, in fact, for tomorrow. If you want to register, you still can at pji.org. Okay, just throwing that in. But we started doing those to empower churches and private schools and even businesses to reopen and get around tyranny. And that's one reason why I think you saw so many private schools open. We were very working behind the scenes to do that. Countless numbers of churches and pastors across the nation were empowered on how to overcome these shutdowns and effectively open much quicker. And we didn't just say what they could do. We also said, and by the way, we've got your back. We'll represent you. We'll defend you without charge, as we do on every single one of our cases. That's just some of the background.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then I will say, and I'll credit. I mean, I got to give my wife some credit here. So she said when it first happened, the shutdown, she told me, she said, it's not going to be just 2 weeks. I said, sweetheart, look, it's just 2 weeks. It's nothing. Honey, look, on May 31st, it's all going to be... After the election... Anyway, she's been right all the time. She just rolls her eyes going like this. So I'm optimistic. I think we're on the verge of seeing this thing come to a complete halt. But my track record hasn't been very good in the past. But I'm very optimistic. Also, when we saw the church just shut down, I want to give credit to our chief counsel, Kevin Snyder, dealing with the shutdowns, because there were some that were filing lawsuits or knee-jerk reaction, and he said, don't. He called them, he said, don't file these lawsuits. We not only don't want to participate, please don't file. It's too premature. There's too much that's shut down. We need a greater disparity between churches and the liquor stores and the pot shops. So it's that sad. It's almost like a joke, but it's true. They opened up before the churches. And we reached that point, so they weren't successful. When we reached that point, though, we knew it was the right time to file when we did. It was when Amy Coney Barrett was being nominated to the Supreme Court. By God's providence, that was no accident how that worked out. Incredible. We filed. We lost at the federal court. We then filed an appeal to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We also lost. And then Kevin Snyder, orchestrated the whole thing so that we would be able to file for an emergency writ with the United States Supreme Court. Now, to get a case heard by the Supreme Court, it's like a Hail Mary pass, okay? It's like less than 1%. It doesn't happen very often. Well, to get an emergency writ, that's like throwing a Hail Mary pass outside the stadium, across town, to another stadium and getting a touchdown. Okay, it's very, very, very unusual. Only death penalty cases usually end up making, even then, it's usually thumbs down. So they nonetheless, Kagan, who's over the Ninth Circuit, says, I'm not going to do a thumbs down. I'm going to let the whole Supreme Court hear this. They heard it in 3 days. They granted us the injunction against Governor Gavin Newsom, saying, open those churches now.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So I mentioned something to you before we got started here today, but there is a bill right now currently that has been introduced into the state legislature. In fact, it's Bill 871. And it was introduced by Senator Richard Pan. You had it right. You said, I think it was done by Pan. He's a Democrat up in Sacramento. And the bill basically, it seeks to create a mandate for the COVID vaccine. In fact, it's even more than that. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make the COVID vaccine part of California's list of required inoculations for attending K through 12 schools. And they write in this bill that it can only be skipped, or there's only exemptions for rare medical cases. They will not allow for any religious exemptions. If passed by the legislature, which doesn't seem like an impossibility at this point, and if it's signed by the governor, this measure would supplant a more limited COVID-19 vaccine that Newsom has already declared during this state of emergency. So I'm just curious, Brad, how do we navigate these waters? And how do we sort of fight back against some of these things as parents, as educators, et cetera, et cetera? What are some of your thoughts about that?
Well, I just want you to know the fact that my wife and I will be moving permanently to Costa Rica in no way should be looked as a... No, a little humor there is probably good. Okay. Because this is diabolical. It is horrific. The ramifications are enormous. Parents, I've talked to groups of parents, and I've asked them in this scenario, what would you choose to do? You can either have your kid vaxxed, you can start homeschooling or be a part of a charter homeschool, which we at Pacific Justice have been equipping churches to do all up and down, actually all across the country. Church homeschool co-ops, it's an awesome vehicle. Or would you just leave the state of California? And it's interesting, when I ask that question to groups, I've discovered that about 30% say they would leave the state of California, I guess because they know what it's like to live outside of California. Maybe that's why most want to stay. And then the other 70% say, they want to stay in California and they're going to homeschool and engage in or church homeschool co-ops and those kinds of institutions. Yeah, that's fantastic, but that this is, it would have a huge ripple. It would be atrocious. We at Pacific Justice, of course, would file a lawsuit to challenge it immediately. I think with the Supreme Court that we have now, because of the fantastic appointments by our former president, Donald Trump, I think we'd have a very good shot at prevailing. It's pushing the government controls way past the line of reasonableness. I do not think, though, I'll tell you, I may be wrong, but our Sacramento office keeps me abreast of what the insiders, the lobbyists are saying, and as far as likelihood. It has a definite, significant chance of passing. I think it's greater than not that it won't. It's an election year. We all saw what the #1 ballot issue in Virginia was, and it was parents' rights. We just saw 3 people booted off the San Francisco School Board.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
So, I think there's going to be enough common sense, but it is alarming that mindset is that widespread in Sacramento to be such a threat. But it's a real concern. Now, here's the good news. The good news is, although the governor has come out with this announcement that he's going to issue this mandate that every child has to be vaxxed in public schools and private schools in California. Once it's rolled out, it looks like it may not be till June or July. We'll see. But he said that this has to take place. Yet, under the law of California, because of a law that was passed in 2015, it mandated all vaccines, no exemptions, practically speaking, especially no religious exemptions. But it said, however, any vaccines added to this list after 2015, well, we don't know what the future is, so we'll let parents have personal belief exemptions for those. Who knows what the future holds? This is in 2015. Well, God knew what the future holds. I mean, so I believe that was what happened because that was in there. Because of that, parents can still file a personal belief exemption. Our offices are working with parents. In fact, on our website, pji.org, you can register to download the personal belief exemption form that's going to be customized to what the governor actually puts in writing. We haven't seen it in writing yet, but once it comes down in writing, our attorney team is going to customize the perfect, detailed response to empower parents in the greatest way possible. So I encourage you to do that. Today on my program, I have a hischannel.com. You guys watch me on hischannel.com? Anyone? Okay, a few of you. Don't be ashamed. It's a good show. No. Anyway, Bright Acres Live. Today we talked about, I interviewed our attorney out of our Washington State office. They're dealing with the same issue up there as well right now. But right now, parents do have that exemption. Now, here's another problem. We have a lot of school districts in California. About 40 of them, though, have gone rogue and said, we're not waiting for Governor Gavin Newsom. We're going to demand vaccines right now, and children have to be vaccinated. So there's 5 lawsuits that have been filed. 40% of those, 2 of the 5, are by Pacific Justice Institute. One we have in LA Unified, the other one's up in Northern California, and we're looking at some more school districts to be suing. But we're taking them on as and arguing that they are going beyond their powers. The supremacy clause, I don't want to get too technical here, but when the state government has already pronounced rules on something, you can't have a lower branch of government coming up with another set of rules or mandates. That's the general rule. And you also can't have school districts saying we're not going to allow for exemptions. So that's a violation of the First Amendment free exercise clause as far as I'm concerned. So we're preparing that today. Kevin Snyder, our chief counsel, argued in court on the one in Northern California. Unfortunately, I do not have an update on how that went. But I encourage all of you, before I forget, because I'm going to forget, if you can, you guys all have one of these? Okay. It'd mean a lot to me personally if you could be so kind as to fill this out so we can keep you updated on all our litigation that's taking place right now. I'd really appreciate that. And then also, I'll just say one other thing too. There's a little box if you want to, if you're interested in possibly becoming a monthly supporter of our work, part of our team, actual part of our team, feel free to check that as well. We'll get back with you. And then we'll be collecting those. You'll have people in the back, just put them on the tables or something, and we'll take those. But the good news right now, parents have the ability to have a personal belief exemption. And, and that's good, and we'll stand and defend every single parent who needs that protection.
Yeah, no, that is really good news. And I know a lot of people are worried about that. In fact, the schools are tracking a decline in attendance right now, currently, and I think it's statewide, nationwide, where all the mandates are still in place. And they are positioning themselves, they talked about this in the Hemet Unified School District's board meeting last night, they're positioning themselves, planning for a continued reduction in attendance. And it's all related to parents pulling their students out of school because of these mandates. And so I think that, So I think that trend will escalate in rapid pace if these things are passed. And so I'm hopeful, and I'm hoping that you're right, Brad, that this thing just dies and it doesn't get passed. So we'll keep our eyes on that. One last question real quick before we bring up our next guest. I'm curious about sort of the judicial landscape in America, okay? We have a Supreme Court justice that just announced his resignation. Our president, Joe Biden, you laughed, Brad, that was good. I know, hey, all right. So is currently, entertaining nominees for that position. What is your take on sort of the judicial landscape? I mean, where are we at in America right now as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 years ago? What does the future look like? I mean, just in a nutshell, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I will tell you, actually, I'm very, very positive because many people don't really appreciate the greatest accomplishment of the Trump administration was appointing federal judges that for the first time ever in my lifetime were the most consistent in respecting the Constitution, even better than Ronald Reagan's appointments, because he had Democrats to deal with in Congress and the Senate at the time. But on the lower court, on the appellate courts, and even the Supreme Court, we now have the most pro-religious freedom, most pro-parents' rights, most pro-sanctity of human life Supreme Court in my lifetime. And it is, and then we have judges all the way down the ballot. These court cases we've taken on to defend religious freedom and in terms of these vaccine mandates and the mask mandates and all this that's going on. If you look at those victories, it's because of judges appointed by former President Donald Trump. So moving forward, actually, in the near term and intermediate term, I'm actually very optimistic. We've got a solid 5 justices. Well, I should say 5.5. I don't know. Our Chief Justice, anyway. But we've got a solid 5, a clear majority. I'm predicting that they're going to be overturning Roe versus Wade. They've been ruling in favor of religious freedom, even 2 on the other side of the aisle, and 3 very important cases have ruled in favor on religious freedom. And I think if we have a change in 2024, which I think is a very good chance we will, then in 2024, that we'll have another appointment by President Donald Trump as well. So at that time, and I won't give my prediction because people think I'm masochistic when I'm predicting something about someone on the court, but I think we are going to definitely have an opening between 2024 and 2028. So now's not the time to cower. Now's the time to actually be encouraged. And let me just say, because I know we need to move on, but let me just say, if we can ever help any of you in any way, never hesitate to give us a call. We have 5 offices here in California alone, and we never charge for our work. We're here to serve you. It's our privilege. And now is not the time to cower. Folks, now we have great freedom. We have great liberty. God's given us tremendous grace. Now's the time to stand up and hold dear to what God has given us. And I am very confident by His grace and through specifically what He's given us with regard to the Supreme Court, I see a huge, gigantic light at the end of this tunnel.
Awesome. That is super encouraging to hear. I think it's good for all of us to hear. And you guys heard it first right here from Brad Dacus' mouth. Donald J. Trump is running for re-election in 2024. Yep. He hasn't even made that public yet, but Brad has an inside scoop, so I'm just teasing. So listen, I want to introduce our next guest. Chad Bianco was elected sheriff. Chad. I got a whole list here, Chad. I couldn't even get it started before they started clapping. That's all right. Oh, man, you want to skip all of that? Oh, man. Listen, Chad's got just a whole slew of things that he's accomplished. I'm not going to go through the whole list for time's sake, but I do want to say this. Sheriff Bianco, you are a legend and a hero. You guys, let me get my stuff out here, you know? I mean, come on. Listen, you're a legend and a hero to all freedom-loving people. And all the people of Riverside County. I can say this, all the people of California, and even in a greater sense, all the people of the United States of America, as we fight against tyranny and against these unconstitutional mandates. And I do want to say on behalf of everyone here and all those watching online, and I want to tell you that we're so proud to call you our sheriff. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. I'd like for you to take a moment and because, look, things have gotten crazy, okay?
You think?
Yeah, oh yeah. So I'd like for you to take a moment and just talk briefly about the events of the past several years. I mean, from the rise of BLM and the protests that we saw during the summer of 2020 to the rise of Antifa, as well as how these mandates and all these things have impacted the overall work of the Sheriff's Department in Riverside County. Can you just give us sort of a brief flyover of all of that? How's that impacted you and our Sheriff's Department?
Yes, that's very, very broad, and I will try and keep it short. I will say, I do want to say thank you for the whole thing about being proud and hero and everything else, but I do want to say that it's sad that this young man right here and myself are getting standing ovations for just doing the right thing. And in a time when we're surrounded by people who are not, it's he and I doing the right thing, doing what is right, that is standing out. So we're hoping that continues. So to the question, we all know back to, the rise throughout the country of BLM and Antifa, and I think that it's somewhat unfair to lump them together because Antifa just kind of jumped on board with them and traveled around with them causing problems. We all saw on TV how horrible it was with cities burning down and buildings burning and broken into, and the looting and police stations being overrun and city blocks being taken away and occupied for months. And I do have to give a little bit of credit. I saw it coming. We watched on TV before it came to Riverside. We saw it in other cities across the East Coast and in Los Angeles. And I remember watching TV with my wife, and we're seeing on the news we were watching it was downtown Los Angeles. Building was on fire. All the windows were broken in the front. There were people coming out of the store looting. They were taking everything out of it. And as the news panned, just like a building away, there were 2 officers standing there. And I told my wife, that isn't going to happen here. We will not stand for that.
Right on. And
so on June 1st of 2020, we had our event here where they showed up in Riverside, and they showed up strong. We estimated, we're obviously not going to count them, but we estimated around 7,500 people that were in downtown Riverside. And having the night before a little bit of an insight of San Bernardino, I had to send 60 deputies to San Bernardino to help them in riots that they were having with buildings on fire. And they told me afterward that when they got there, they were being shot at. They heard the gunfire. They heard the bullets going past them. And I'm like, this is just ridiculous. I can't believe we're at this point. And so that night and into the next morning, we're preparing for them to show up in Riverside. And I just told my staff, I said, how many people do we have going? How many people do we have to represent to protect the jail, the courthouse, and really in the back of my head, the Mission Inn. And that thing, it's beautiful, but it's made out of wood, and it's surrounded by trees that go up like candles, and it would have been a disaster. And so knowing what they were going to do, and I would, because I am a firm believer in all of our rights, and I believe that it is my job to protect your rights. There's a First Amendment right to free speech. And we met them there that day, as they gathered, and I was right there on the front line with them, talking to them, explaining to them, to the leaders there, and we were having great conversations. I'd let you do whatever you're going to do. Peaceful protest is one thing. As soon as we're going to draw that line at violence, and we're going to end it quick. And we did. Yeah. It took us 20 minutes to end it.
Right on. Right on.
After that, there were other protests planned out in the desert in Temecula, and we sent back to Riverside. Initially, I had about 100 deputies that were assigned to that we were going to protect downtown with, and the city of Riverside had between 80 and 100. He really wasn't sure how many he was going to have, and I kind of panicked. And I said, we need to up that a little bit, get 150, close to 200 deputies. By the time we were done that night, we had over 900. And we were able to end that so fast that after that, I said, every single protest from here on out, we will have that same response. So we had that show of force at every protest, and what they quickly learned, and we were following them on social media, we learned that they didn't want to be here anymore. They learned that they were not going to be allowed to loot. They were not going to be allowed to break into stores. They were not going to be allowed to burn anything. And in their online platforms, they were saying, we can't go to Riverside. Nothing happens in Riverside. Right. And so we won.
Yeah.
And what we learned of that is our intelligence bureau did such a fantastic job getting into social media that we were able to follow them, the violent ones, and we were able to see what they were doing and listen to what they were saying and their plans. That's how they communicate, is through social media. So we really had to change the way we operate. And other agencies, including Los Angeles, were calling me saying, how did you do that? What were you doing? And it was really simple. It was like, get your deputies out there and let them do what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Keep the politics out of it and let them protect our residents.
Yeah. Awesome.
And so that's what we did. And so if you remember, we had about 2 weeks of peaceful protests. We stopped the violence afterward, and then it went away. We never heard it from it again. It was still going on in other places, but not in Riverside County. And should it happen again, they can expect the same thing. We have, if you don't know, we are the 4th largest sheriff's department in the country. We are very large. I have at my disposal 2,600 deputies that we can protect you very, very well, and we will.
Awesome.
So with that, I said I was going to be short, and I wasn't.
That's all right.
So now on to the mandates. The mandates were an animal in itself, and how did that affect me? It didn't, because I said it wouldn't affect me.
Yeah.
And I want to add some. Actually, I think I know what one of the questions you're going to ask me later, so I'll save that response for that one.
Cool. Well, you know what? I want to ask you about morale. Listen, one of the things that we're watching in our nation and in the state of California, even specifically, is that police are being demonized. They're being made out to be the bad guys, and it is a tough time right now in America to be a law enforcement officer. And so I know that everyone in this room, I'm assuming everyone in this room, by the applause and the reception you got is for our law enforcement officers, but that's not the case in other places. And so, what is the current status of morale among your deputies, and how are you guys dealing with these challenges?
Well, I want to disagree with you just a little bit and say that I don't believe it is unlike here in other places. I think that's what some people want us to believe. I will say that Riverside County, not just your deputies, I'm going to speak for your individual police departments also, but particularly my deputies. The morale in our department is higher than any time I've witnessed it in my career. I've been with the Sheriff's Department I'm in my 29th year. There is a feeling amongst our department, and I know it, I've talked to the chiefs, and so I know it's with them. We absolutely know that the vast majority of our public supports us. And the outpouring of support that deputies get when they are out answering calls or when they are out in the field from the general public is something that they have it's never happened. I mean, I remember being a deputy and, someone may buy me a cup of coffee or, someone may say something, but it wasn't all the time. It was very, very rare. And now, when you go out into public, when you answer calls, when you're walking down the street, you go into a business, it is constant that someone is thanking the deputies for what they're doing. So we feel that, and we feel it all the time. And I'm telling you, that is what drives morale. It helps morale that they know that I have their back. Mm-hmm. And when they get it from both sides, then deputies are allowed to just do what we signed on to. And that was, we want to go arrest the bad guy. If you're victimized, we want some type of justice for you. We want to arrest the person that victimized you. And we will do it every single day, day in and day out. Awesome.
Well, that's good to hear. And you know what? I think it is, Riverside County is a unique place in the landscape of California. Some of you may not know this, but Riverside County was the only large county to actually pass the 50% barrier in the recall election for Newsom. We voted to recall Gavin Newsom. And so the landscape is unique here, and we are blessed because of it. I want to transition to schools. Look, a lot of our schools have sheriff's deputies serving as resource officers in the schools. Currently, all of the schools in Riverside County, from what I'm aware of, are instituting masks mandates as well as vaccine mandates for teachers and students. Well, not quite students yet, but it looks like it may be coming. So my question is as a resource officer, as a sheriff's deputy on a campus, what's the role of that officer in enforcing these mandates? And do you guys have a policy in your department related to that specifically?
We do not have a policy relating to that specifically, so the direction for that comes directly from me. And we will certainly not treat our kids any different than we treated our businesses and our residents and anything else. I will not allow our deputies to be muscle or force to enforce a mask mandate. Awesome. I mean, this young man said it best when he said it's ridiculous. I mean, we've been lied to so many different times, they can't even know what stories they've told us or what the truth is. And so with the mandates in schools, no, we will not enforce mandates on kids. So there's a unique drama that goes on there because we will get called to schools by the school administrators or by teachers, and we are strictly there in a keep the peace situation. You have a young man that obviously shows a lot of intelligence and restraint in how he handled it, as well as his parents, and we hope that that's how most of them go, but we certainly are not going to go there because an administrator says that person's not wearing a mask, because I'm telling you right now, the deputy that shows up isn't going to be wearing one either.
Awesome. Listen, I want to ask you a question specifically because our school board members are elected officials, as you are as well. And we're being repeatedly told by our school board members that they have no ability to repeal mask or vaccine mandates within the school system, that they are appealing to higher elected officials and are having to follow guidance from above. And it's very frustrating for parents. It's very frustrating for those who are advocating for the removal of these mandates and for freedom in the schools. I know that you have made a decision personally that's resulted in some flack in the media and in some other places to not enforce these mandates. What would you say to a school board member, an elected official, that says, my hands are tied, there's nothing I can do?
Yeah, there's so many things I want to say to that. A lot of you have probably listened to me talk and you know I'm not brief.
Hey, all right. I think you've got them, Chad. I don't think they're going anywhere. So
there's a couple of points that I want to make with that. And to put it in a nutshell, there was a point when the governor said that I was to enforce masks, I was to close businesses, I was to enforce every part of his mandate, and I said no. And then there was another point later on, several months later, when he publicly threatened me vicariously, but he threatened the county of Riverside with not giving us money for the treatment of people with COVID, not giving us state-mandated federal money coming through the state for our counties. He was going to withhold that money unless I enforced the mandates. So again, I publicly said, absolutely not. And as a law enforcement officer, looking at him, this is where it goes, I'm going to tie this into our board. I'm an elected official. I did what was right. I didn't ask any of you what you thought I should do. You elected me to do the right thing. I will admit that originally I thought it was just to go out and fight crime. I didn't know that I was going to have to invoke that other part and protect your actual constitutional rights. I was an elected official. I stood up and I did the right thing. And look at what happened. Look at the result that came of that. When he threatened me that he was going to withhold our money It scared me, but I certainly was not going to back down. We heard someone else say he doesn't back down from a fight. He was certainly not going to bully me into forcing something on you that none of us believed was right. And so with the school districts, I'm going to tell you right now, that kid right there has more leadership ability in his pinky than that school board. And it's amazing to me that everyone pushes the responsibility to someone else. I could have said, well, it's not my fault. Sorry, y'all. The governor said I have to do it, and so close your businesses, put your mask on, stay in your house, nobody's leaving, and if you come out, you're going to jail. That's what he wanted me to do. I could have easily said it was him doing it, and I could have just done it. That's not the right thing to do. These board members could stand up and do the right thing. The problem with board members and elected officials is it's impossible for you to know whether or not you're electing a leader. You're electing a politician that wants either money or power or something, and use that board that as a stepping stone for some other political position that he can say, oh, I was a school board, or I was a school board member for so many years, now you need to elect me to city council so I can screw that up too. But leadership ability is the courage to stand up and do the right thing. So there are 650,000 kids in the county of Riverside. Are you telling me there's 2.5 million people? 2.5 million people that are parents, that are grandparents, that are nieces, or that are aunts and uncles and everything else that vote. Are you telling me that there's not leaders in this county, in this school board districts, that aren't willing to say, we're going to do the right thing and we're going to stand up to you, and you think that the governor's not going to listen? You think he's going to just say, oh, I'm going to withhold your money from entire Southern California school districts? It's not going to happen. But you have to get people in those positions that are leaders. And if they're not there, get them out.
Yeah. Yep. I appreciate you saying that, because we, members of our coalition, feel the same. And we are actively, by the way, just so you guys know, we are actively looking to replace board members who are not leaders. And so we need your help in that. Obviously, these are elected positions. And so we need people to vote for alternatives. And we're going to change this Valley's school system together. And we're going to do it peacefully. We're going to do it through the elected process, and there is momentum. There is tremendous momentum.
I'm not going to say that my position is important, because I still want you all to vote for me. But what I have had to deal with in the last year with school boards, and it had nothing to do with vaccinations and nothing to do with masks, but it's the same people. It's those same boards that don't want deputies in our schools. Now, apparently those people have an unbelievable memory problem, because there's a reason why we all demanded deputies be in our schools. We wanted our kids to be kept safe. And we've listened to these politically motivated, agenda-driven board members tell us that deputies are the bad people in high schools, that deputies are scaring their kids and it's not a learning environment because there's a deputy there. If that isn't a bunch of BS, I don't know what is. But that's what they want us to believe. And those are the people that I've had to deal with over the last year, because they want deputies out of their high schools, and they were refusing to fund the positions for our SROs, for our school resource officers. And it was a battle. But it was me learning that what I'm telling you right now, that position is the absolute, for the history, for our future, school board positions are the absolute most important elected official positions right now that we have. And you all have to start paying attention to them. You have to start volunteering your time, searching out those positions, get elected to those positions, and take back the education system from what has infiltrated it.
Yeah. I want to ask you one question, and then it's almost 7:30. That's our scheduled time to leave, you guys. If you guys are willing to hang out for a little bit, we've got some questions that people have shared. And if you're willing to hang out just for a little bit, we can get to some questions from you guys. You can scan that QR code on the handout that you had, you guys, and that's how we're collecting these questions. So last question I have for you, Chad, is simply this. Look, you're up for re-election this year. I've heard through the grapevine, okay, and by the way, we had Mike Hestron here a few months ago in one of our town halls here. Fantastic guy. I know you guys, it seems to me, and I haven't asked you this before, but you guys are pretty lockstep and together in your thought process and in the way that you guys are operating. But he's also up for re-election. And what I've heard through the grapevine is that there are some powerful forces out there, i.e., the George Soroses of the world, who have you in their crosshairs and are actively trying to undermine your campaign, are actively trying to pour money into our county to flip it blue, both in our district attorney's office and in the sheriff's department. Do you want to speak to that? Are you seeing that? What's happening right now that we need to be aware of?
We are seeing that. And I will tell you that this goes kind of back a little bit to one of the last questions of one of the things that concerns us most in law enforcement, in public safety. And quite honestly, the biggest thorn in my side is our current legislature, including our governor, who really controls the legislature. And the laws that they are passing are making it to where my job is more difficult. They have publicly stated, the current legislature, major majority, supermajority, has said that they will not pass a law if it means that somebody's going to prison. So do you think they care about criminals, or do you think they care about all of you? There is more care for eliminating our prison system than for keeping you safe. And so with that, they are going after, school boards were done a long time ago. They infiltrated that a long time ago. Recently, we have seen in the last several years, several cycles, we have seen them try and take over DA races, because the DA races are the ones that prosecute the crimes. They don't want people being prosecuted. And so we saw a large influx of that type of money going toward DA races. Unfortunately, it's worked in Sacramento for years. Unfortunately, you all know what happened in Los Angeles last election. That guy is a train wreck, and he has no business being in that position. Absolutely no business. But the money they used to get him there, it worked. And so they're trying to duplicate that in other places. The unique position that I am in is I am elected by all of you, and I am a law enforcement officer. So the requirement for a district attorney, you just have to be an attorney. So you have prosecutors, you have defense attorneys, and you have some defense attorneys that are complete, off the charts, the wrong way, that have the potential of winning that election. With law enforcement, you do not. I'm going to tell you that the vast majority, I'm going to tell you every single one of them is 100% pro public safety and keeping you safe. There may be a few Democrats in law enforcement, but it's Democrat for social reasons, not for public safety. They absolutely stand tall and stand strong in keeping you safe. They know that. They can't find anybody to run against me, because what are you going to do to run against me in Riverside? What are you going to do? Are you going to go to all of you? Am I going to stand up here and say, oh, elect me, because I'm not going to arrest anyone? I'm not going to come to the calls for service when you call me. I'm going to let everybody out of jail, and I'm going to make you all wear masks and shut down your businesses. Is anybody going to vote for me then? They can't find anyone to run against me with that platform. So they're trying to change the law in the state to make it so anyone can run for sheriff. You don't have to be a cop anymore. The law was last year. The law, they were trying to get that bill passed. It failed. They were bringing it back this year, and they shot it down quick, but they are revamping it for next year. But that is the way your legislature thinks. So for me, I'm relatively safe, and because most cops think exactly like I do, we want to keep you safe. As of right now, I don't have anybody running against me.
All right.
With that said, though, that comes back to what concerns me most for public safety. Because I feel like I'm safe, especially if no one's running against me, if I don't win and no one's running against me, that write-in campaign was fantastic. The problem that I have now for law enforcement in Riverside County, I know we will be going in the right direction as far as fighting crime and dealing with our police departments and collaboratively working together to keep you all safe. The problem that I have now is Mike's race, the district attorney's race, is being infiltrated by that money, and now they're going after him. I will say, to answer your question, Mike and I are friends. And
Awesome.
The unique thing about it is we became friends. We basically believe in the same thing. Our number one priority is God. Our number two priority is our wives. Our number three is our kids. And number four is work.
Awesome.
And with that, we actually became very good friends. We're very close. We speak all the time. And Mike and I know that we are unique in this entire state in that I have meetings with sheriffs routinely. Mike has meetings with DAs routinely. We know that we are unique in that the DA and the sheriff actually get along. How sad is that? That we are the only ones.
Yeah.
I have to have Mike stay in there, especially with who they're running against him. They're going to be putting big money against him, and they have found a judge in the desert that is going to be the one to do it. The problem with that is when I tell you a judge is running against him, that sounds like pretty good, right? He's a judge. You think they do the right thing? This particular person is from the Bay Area. He ran for several failed offices on the Democrat Party. He tried to be the Democrat caucus leader, not caucus, I don't even know what they call him. It'll come to me. It's not important. He tried to run to head the Democratic Party in the Bay Area twice and failed. He knew his political career was failing, so he moved, and he moved to Riverside. He got a job with the Riverside County DA's office for a couple of years, registered as an independent, and then ran for a judge seat that was unopposed, and he won. So you had no choice but to elect him, and he became a judge. He is personal friends with Gavin Newsom. He is already attacking Mike. His family are billionaires. He is already attacking Mike with lies, false claims that Mike is not pro law enforcement, that he's not anti-crime, he's not strong enough and hard enough on crime. It is an absolute lie. And if he wins, it is because George Soros, that money is being funneled into his campaign. We haven't been able to track it yet, but the rumor is that it's at least a minimum of $1 million, and they're going after your DA. That will be disastrous for me. So if you like me, start voting for Mike. Start liking Mike and vote Mike.
Yeah, we like Mike, right? Yeah. Somebody just said, what's his name? His name is Mike Hestron. So you want to vote for Mike Hestron? He's up for re-election along with Chad.
Yes, yeah. Mike Hestron. Do not even ask what the other person's name is. We don't even want to repeat that name. Just make sure that we support our current DA. He really is doing a fantastic job. And I will tell you this, he is 100%, I won't even go there, but he is 100% one of the most strictest prosecution-wise DAs that we have in this state. At the same time, he seriously has a heart to rehabilitate the people that he's prosecuting. And he wants them to get better. He wants to stop. He has a huge influence in our school systems with trying to keep kids from going down a path of crime. It's not just this throw the book at him and throw him away. He really does have a heart. He's trying to make it better here, and he's a fantastic DA.
So I've got 2 questions that I'm going to ask. We've had several questions come in. I apologize, you guys. We're running out of time. So I'm going to dismiss you guys after these 2 questions before I dismiss everybody else. Do you mind hanging out in the lobby and just kind of answering any questions and meeting and greeting people? Is that
Sorry,
cool?
Denise.
So first question for you, Chad. When are you running for governor? It's right there, Chad. I didn't make it up.
I know he did. So I'll tell you this: I can see some cameras that are putting this, that are filming this, and this is obviously going to be broadcast all over the place. This is going to be a little self-serving because I want to be the sheriff for a long, long, long time. I love my job. I love protecting you. I love serving this county, and I want to stay there for a long time. But I will tell you this: this is a little self-serving now. For when am I going to run for governor? There is a movement, and I'm going to tell you, I'm trying to stop this, but I'm going to tell you, there is a movement with it. All sheriff's elections are this year. The only sheriff election in the state that is not is San Francisco, and his is 2 years from now, the same as the presidential cycles. Ours are the same as the governor cycle, the rest of the sheriffs in the state. So if I was to run for governor, I would not be allowed to run for sheriff. So I would have to give that up. So if I didn't win, then I wouldn't be the sheriff either. So they are trying, because the Democrat Party, the majority of Congress, or of our legislature, is trying to sway sheriffs because they don't control us. You know that you are the only ones that control me, not the governor. And I know we have a supervisor here, but the supervisors don't control me. They can't tell me what to do. The governor can't tell me what to do. It's all of you. That's where I take my orders from. So they are trying to change my election, sheriff's elections, to the same as the presidential election because they feel like they would get more Democrats out to vote, and then they would be able to elect sheriffs that were more liberal, left-leaning sheriffs. If that happens, they have to switch my election. So say you're electing me right now. If they were to make that happen and change that law, they couldn't cut my term short to 2 years. They would have to extend it. So I would be the sheriff for 6 years, which the next election would be, I think it's 2030, might be 2028. But then I could run for governor and still be the sheriff. Because my election won't be for 2 more years. So, Gavin, he knows he'll be out, he'll be gone, but for the rest of the Democrats, if you want me to run against you, change my election.
Beautiful. I love it. All right, so Brad, I think this question is perfect for you. We have an administrator in the audience that runs a private school here in the Valley, and they are navigating the same challenges that all the schools are. And the question is what levity do they have in enforcing these mandates as a private school that's not receiving any government funding?
Right. Are you talking about the mask mandates?
Both, yeah, masks and vaccines.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as, first of all, let's talk about the mask mandates. We're defending a private preschool down in San Diego County. It's a part of a church, and they've been shut down, and we're representing. They want to order the 2, 3, and 4-year-olds that they must wear a mask, even though the parents are saying, no, my child doesn't need it. My doctor's pediatrician says it's not good for my child. They're saying, no, every child must wear a mask. We're litigating that case right now as we speak. With regard to the vaccines and the vaccine mandates as applied to private schools, we have something very helpful in that regard. We're working with private schools to empower them, and here's how we're doing it. We're encouraging them to let the parents be aware of the opt-out that they can file with a medical exemption to have their child protected. We actually have the doctors willing to comply and to provide you that support. We really work behind the scenes. A lot of our work is behind the scenes as attorneys. And so we're helping and empowering many parents. I know that, well, I won't say any more than that, but I'll just say we're here to help you. So if you have a private school, you guys are actually in a much better position because generally speaking, private schools, private Christian schools, they don't want to invoke a mask mandate that they know is not necessary and in the long run is harmful and detrimental statistically. This is not my opinion. This is what the stats show. So we can work with you. I've spoken at a number of large private schools to empower them and to empower the parents. At the beginning of all these meetings, I told them, I said, let me just tell you right up front, and all these parents are really angry and upset. I says, at the end of this meeting, you're going to be very happy. And every time they all smiled, they says, yes, we're very happy because we gave them what they needed. So if you're in that situation, just contact our office. We can give you the doctors. You have that made out. And the private school can look at this and say, okay, I'm accepting this. We're accepting this. This child doesn't have to wear a mask, or this child, it can even apply it also to vaccinations. It's the same concept. So we're here to help you at all times.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you. Hey, listen, let's give one more round of applause for Sheriff Bianco and Brad Dacus. Thank you, Sheriff. God bless you. Thank you. Brad, God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys want to head out to the back? While they're heading out to the back, I just want to say a couple things real quick. First off, I just want to thank you for coming. We did go a little long today. I apologize for that. We are going to be planning more town hall meetings in the future. We want you to find us on Facebook, the Freedom Coalition, Hemet San Jacinto. If you want to watch this video, we have live streamed it on YouTube on Freedom Matters. That is our YouTube page, as well as our Facebook page. I want to say one more thing, okay? It is very important that as we enter this election season, this is 2022, election cycle 2022, it's midterms both for our state and our nation. It's not enough anymore for you to just vote. You must get other people to vote. You must educate your neighbors. You must educate your family members. We are in a real fight. People are calling this time in America right now a cold civil war. And there is no better way to describe it than that. It is not enough, like I said, for you to just vote. You must bring others along. Listen, I want to thank you all for coming today. God bless you. Have a great day.